So I thought I'd do something a bit different today and really just to wrap up the pond build video series. Um, so obviously I've documented how I went about the pond. I came up with that kind of technique and the way I built it from watching numerous YouTube channels, videos, and on forums looking at different things that people had done in the past. So I kind of then put that together based on those ideas, but that doesn't mean that it's the right thing. And actually, there are things that I would do differently. Um, so really, just to end the series rather than kind of just polishing over the mistakes that I've made and the things that I would do if I did it again. I thought I'd do a quick video just to wrap it all up. So I've made some notes. And I guess so. The first topic is what would I do differently? I'd probably go a bit deeper with the pond. It's 1.2 meters. I'd have probably gone down to 1.4, and I would have sellotexed the bottom. So I didn't sellotex the bottom, just the sides. And I don't think that's the end of the world. And certainly, if someone had told me that I needed to go down another 200 millimeters when I was digging, I'd have probably cried. But I think would have probably been worth the investment up front to dig down further and then sellotext as well, just for the warmth, because I intend to heat the pond, and I think that would have paid dividends going forward. A major one, next one, is I would have made the concrete collar wider and deeper and added rebar to it. So I had rebar and I didn't use it because by the time I was thinking of drilling into the collar and then hitting the rebar, I thought that was an added complication when drilling all the way through the sleepers as well. So I didn't use it. I regret that. You'll see from one of the videos that I've published that I've got cracks at the corner. Now, the concrete is 7 inches thick and 5 inches wide. And it was extra strong ready mixed concrete or pre-mixed concrete. So that surprises me that's cracked, but it has. And I guess that just goes to show the sheer weight of water involved. So I would have dug down deeper to hit firmer ground. I would have made that a deeper collar, just to save for problems later. When it comes to the concrete, I would have used a ready-mix lorry, or I would have mixed my own with a mixer, because I used pre-mixed bags that you just add water to. I went with the guide on how much it was meant to do off the back of the bag, and that is not the coverage that those bags give. So I had to go out and buy, I think, another 20 bags. So I must have used like 50 bags or something like that. It was an expensive, very expensive way of doing it. When in actual fact, I'd have got better quality concrete because it would have gone in one go, that if I'd got a mix or at least a mixer and mixed it up by hand. But as we were doing hand mixing a bag, 2 bags in a barrow at a time, there was a delay between putting the different bags in. And I think you probably got some sort of drying line through it, which probably didn't help the strength. In hindsight, I would have put my filter behind the log cabin. There is room there for it, but obviously I didn't know that at the time because everything was such a mess and the plans weren't set. So I suppose that's a hindsight thing. Won't impact anyone else. This is another one that I'd like to point out. So where the window meets the liner, I've got a recess kind of created by the fact that the Celotex stops, and then I've got metal bar that runs round on the 3 sides, and the window then sits onto that metal bar. Well, when you then put the liner in, the liner has to go over the metal bar and then up, and the window goes against that. That created creases at the corners, which, I mean, there's plenty of silicone on there, but I think that would be more inclined to leak. So I think being careful of the transition from one to the other and probably trying to smooth the way into it would have been better to do that. I would have also definitely used black silicone to put the window on. I don't know why I didn't think of that at the time, but I bought a large quantity of white I used about 10 tubes on the window. It's all algaed over now, you can't really see it. So it's not the end of the world, but I should have used black. I do have some movement on the timber around the window. You can see that it's actually sort of pushing out slightly, which I suppose is not really a surprise because there's a lot of weight of water there and there's nothing bridging across the top of that glass, right? So it is sort of twisted out like that. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to do anything about it. And I don't know if you could stop it. Maybe drilling down through the timbers and putting metal rod down there as well, or maybe extra bracing. But I put quite a lot of bracing, angle iron and box section bracing around that window. I guess that's just the forces of the way of water, really. On the filter side of things, I wouldn't have put my submersible pump in the moving bed. That later caused me issues. I was getting vibration through the plastic, was acting like a drum and it was noisy. And also when I actually wanted to go down and service it, at one point I shut a valve with the pump on and it literally blew the pump off the fitting on the inside of the container. So I had to get back down into it and reinstall it. And that was a nightmare when you've got nearly 100 litres of K1 in the moving bed. All had to come out. And I managed to then put an external pump on, which was a much better idea. I already had the submersible, but still, I should have done it properly the first time round. I think looking at the filter arrangement now and in the pond, happy with the two jets. I think they work great. I would have considered putting two bottom drains in. I put one in the middle, and in theory, it's meant to cover the width of the pond. But I do find I do have some kind of detritus on the bottom that takes quite a while to move into the range of that bottom drain. So, if I was doing it again, maybe I'd consider two. The actual bottom drains themselves, when you're going for a non-aerated one, aren't that expensive. So, and the RDF would have supported it. So I could have done that. And I would have put my skimmer an inch and a half lower in the pond, because with the RDF set up the way it is, it needs quite a specific water level, and so the margin of error in the pond isn't very big before you lose water through the RDF and the skimmer starts to drop. So I think I would have moved that down, and that would have made the coping much easier as well. So they're all the things I would change, but don't get me wrong, I'm not unhappy with the pond. I'm really pleased with it, but I just think it's important to reflect on what you do differently. So things I'm pleased about. So the pond in general, I think it looks great. I'm like dead chuffed with it, and it's exactly what I envisaged when I sort of was planning it. And it took a long time to plan it, a long time to kind of get the resources together to do it. So I'm really pleased with how it came out. I think the window is a talking point and a focal point on the pond, and seeing the fish on the side is fantastic. I don't know that I'd want one without a window, if I'm honest. Price-wise, it wasn't that much when you consider the cost of pipe work and all the rest of it with filters. I think it was about 270 quid, something like that. So I would definitely, if you're going to build one, I would definitely seriously consider a window. Mounting that window wasn't fun, but it hasn't leaked yet. So I'll just leave that there. I don't think I'll talk any more about that. I'm really pleased with the filter setup and performance. I was originally going to make an RDF based on the Righty design, but then found one that I could buy second hand that needed fixing. And I knew that basically I was going to build one anyway, right? So fixing it wasn't too bad a deal. So I did that. I'm really pleased that I went with a gravity system with the skimmer and bottom drain going into the RDF with a moving bed. That for me has worked really well, and I wouldn't want to do any differently to that. I'm really pleased with the first season's growth of the fish that are in there. The ones I bought this season have done really, really well, and I've now got the small koi in there as well. They seem to return to corner. They're eating plenty. I have heated the pond up a few degrees today, or over the course of the last 24 hours, just to try and reverse the decline of the latter end of last week, because they were looking quite lethargic and unhappy about the whole thing really, and they're up and about now swimming, so that's great. I think my electrical setup is now really good. I suspect it's cost quite a bit of money, but it's been done right. So I know that I've got the armoured cable all the way up. I've got good supply from the house. I've got the heater. It should all work fine. And then the last one, I suppose, is the sail. I'm really pleased with how that turned out. I left the decision about kind of pagodas, covers, late until I'd made the pond, and I couldn't quite work out what I wanted. I knew I wanted something over it, but when I looked at kind of a pagoda, we couldn't really agree on how that would fit in with the garden. But the sail just covers it really nicely, and for the winter I'll then take that down and we'll put polycarbonate covers over the pond, and that can go away until the beginning of next year. It was £25 off Amazon, so it wasn't expensive. The only thing I would say about it is where it's advertised as square, they're not actually square, because they go the four corners which you tension on, actually the line of the material kind of dips in like that, so you kind of get that sort of shape. So bear that in mind if you're going to get one. And also where you put it, so if you just cover the pond, obviously, and the sun's shining from this angle, you will get areas where you'll get sunlight still. So you either need to go on past the pond to cover it, or just accept you get some daylight. I don't mind that. There's shade for the fish in the pond area, and the daylight that comes through normally lights up the water for the window, right? So you can see the fish nicer through the window. So that's it really. I just thought I'd put that together, a little bit of a lessons learned, just to top off the build video series, and hopefully answer some questions. So thanks for watching.